concussion is recognised as one of the hardest diagnoses to make in sports medicine. And what we now have is the challenge whereby everyone is diagnosing every incident as concussion. And they're doing it through the telly, they're doing it from 500 yards away, and that's a challenge for us who have to manage it. The IRFU, in its present concussion strategic plan, has initially started out by a broad educational approach, educating everyone involved in the game about all aspects of concussion. What we've done from the start is we've recognised that everyone has a role in the management of concussion. And we have done that through use of our Safe Rugby programme, concussion talks throughout the country, and various social medias. What we're now looking at is how we educate each person in their specific role. So what we've done is we've produced a series of videos, one for junior players, one for senior players, one for coaches, referees and family members, with each of them focusing on the message that is important for them in the management of concussion. And this is all based on the RFU's mantra of stop, inform, rest and return. So if we take, for example, the referee video focuses on that the knowledge the referee needs to have is the employment of Rule 3.9, which allows them remove any player from the field of play for their health. And so we say use that rule in any case of suspected concussion, that they stop the player playing, that they hand them over to a responsible person, ideally the coach or parent, for their ongoing care. So they're the bits the referees really need to go. The important bit for the coach in the stop, inform, rest, return is obviously stop anyone that they see with a suspected concussion for playing. The things they need to know is how to inform, hand the player over who they suspect of concussion to either another responsible adult or a medic or a parent. And the other thing that's vital that they know is the return. The graded return to play is vital for coaches to know. That's the bit that they're going to have to manage. The graded return to play is basically a 6-step process that gets people back to playing. From stage 1, rest, then building up the level of activity over a number of stages, initially just running, then more rugby-specific drills, then full contact and back to play. In the amateur domestic game, for people under 20, it is 23 days. It is 14 days of rest and then 2 days at each of the next 4 stages to back to play. If you are a senior player over 20 in the amateur domestic game, that is 21 days, 3 weeks, 14 days of rest and then a single day at each of the levels with 2 days at contact before you go back to play. This is clearly different to what happens in the professional game. And that is because the professional players have baseline medical testing and have access, daily access to medical care and management that doesn't exist within the domestic game.
Sexton took that right in the face.
The tackle is the commonest area in which a concussion happens. Technique tends to disimprove as you tire. So there's also about appropriate fitness, but it is about looking at preventative things. The other thing is the enforcement of the laws. Lots of injuries happen when foul play occurs. So coach education and tackle technique, appropriate fitness and appropriate adherence to the laws are significant preventative strategies that are touched on in the videos and that are important in moving this subject on. I think we've done a huge amount of work, a significant amount of very positive work. There's always more to do. We are moving and we need to move into the areas of prevention, which we've touched on, and research. So we're involved in supporting a research project in the school's rugby in Ulster. We need to be trying to stay ahead of this, looking at what are the things that could cause it, what changes we make to lower the incidence. So for example, our Safe Rugby programme, while it has components in concussion, looks at the management of any injury in rugby, because in time there may be something else we have to manage. So we need to be all the time researching and looking at the management of any injury, of which concussion is just one.
Yes, so the problem is there. It's not going away. Rod McLaughlin there, a few admitting as much, but check out www.irfu.ie/concussion. You can access if you're involved in the game or for your own curiosity or peace of mind or whatever it is, you can access videos that have been specifically produced there. I mean, bad news today, a young kid called Nick Tooth, 25-year-old club player, dies after a concussion incident. It is the hot burning issue of the moment. Is it down to getting the right protocols in place, or is it down to changing the laws in terms of tackling or equipment? Where is it going?
It's a mixture. It's a very serious issue, and I think Rod McLaughlin makes a very valid point here about the safety of the game. We were talking about the laws, the high tackles, for example, guys leading with their elbows, high forearm challenges, guys running into rucks, shoulder charging into people. That has to be policed better. On the field, off the field, right down to the amateur era. If you're at a game on a Sunday morning, it's an under-10s game, for any parent or coach out there, if you suspect concussion, you got to remove the player. There's any suspicion of concussion, take the player off the field. There's no stage rule, dust him off with the magic sponge and send him back on. That's the big difference. At all levels in the amateur game, the professional players have the constant medical supervision and support. That's why they're back, the return to play is much shorter. So in the amateur game, being out for 3.5 weeks is really vital. Any symptoms in there, you got to get the medical assessment. But for the professional guys, I think you have to go through the assessment.
This is going to gather and gather. We're not doctors, so we can't go along the medical part. What I would like to see, and it's simplistic in its own, there's got to be a mixture of both, is the parents that I talk to, some of them are saying that young people are trying to emulate senior international players in the way they play the game. In their physicality, you go down to every gym in the country.
And the game has gone more physical,
isn't it? You go to every gym in the country now, young players, it's all about bulk. It's not about appreciation. I went back to Gary Ringrose a few. It's not about appreciation of space anymore. We saw, and things like players becoming tired, their technique goes when they get tired. This trying to offload, the high tackling, all those things have to be looked at as well, because young players will look at the senior players and they will respect the likes of Brian O'Driscoll and say, he goes in hard, he tackles, that's how I'm going to tackle. You've got guys like Bastero running down a 10 channel. The guy's over 20
Brent,
stone.
Paddy, how do you manage this? I mean, we heard in the piece, Rod, saying 50,000 people in the stands are doctors, 1 million people at home are doctors. We don't still know what concussion is. It's such a broad definition.
It is. Well, I think the tragedies of the Ben Robinsons and stuff has really highlighted the problem with concussion. And one thing that's coming out of this, which is a positive, is the players are educating themselves more. They're not. It is a gladiatorial sport, and you'll try and stay on as best you can, but there'll be something in your back of your mind saying, well, maybe it's not worth it, the risk.
Well, when did that happen to you? I mean, you got 3 in a row, didn't you?
Yeah, I got 4 one season, and it was down to bad luck more than anything, but I think the more frequency that you get bangs to the head, I'm not sure the medical
but none of us are doctors, but tell us the symptoms. Tell us how
I
it
felt
I
was more likely to get a concussion after the first one or two.
Well, you are.
And I took a complete break. I mean, to be
what
fair
were
to
the
the
symptoms?
IRFU, I was looked after very well. I saw Professor Lynch down in Dublin. I saw a neurologist as well. We did cognitive testing. I took a 12-week break from the game. All my cognitive testing shot up after that.
Was it physical pain, or did you just notice yourself feeling weird?
It was blurred vision. It was just the slightest tap on the head, and my vision would go, and I'd get headaches.
But interesting enough, I was back home at Christmas, and I picked up an old sporting annual, I think 1965, and I wish I'd brought the article back, because someone wrote about it then and said that rugby is akin to a boxer by the number of... And Peter's right, once you've had one, I've been concussed and so
But the stuff that's changed, Popey, is the education is out there. If you go back to November, Éanna Falvey, Dr. Éanna Falvey he goes onto the field and he makes a decision to take Conor Murray off. Conor Murray clearly wants to stay on. That's sending out a message to everyone in the country at all age
Take
grades.
the grey area out.
It doesn't fix the problem.
That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it doesn't fix the problem.
The game's become too physical, and that is the...
So what's your solution?
I don't know this. I don't have the
solution.
The solution is the way teams are playing the game.
But the solution is the education. And there's videos there now that every amateur coach and parent in the country can go on. The IRFU have received criticism. The videos are there.
For kids, I agree. But if Bastero is watching one of those videos, is he going to take any notice? I mean, his strength is his strength.
There you go.
Exactly, and kids will see that, and that's why they're in the gyms at 14. And
that's the problem.
I think
what's the solution? We can just protect and educate as best we can.
We can,
you can't
look at the law. And
look at the laws. Yeah, absolutely.
And be more ruthless on the penalties for foul play.
Sure.
Or,
yes.
You're right. It is education, but I mean,
it's always going to be an impact sport.
But it's been highlighted more and more now. So the George North incident against Wales was a mistake.
Yeah,
The Welsh Rugby
sure.
Union held up their hands. The week after, they put a third doctor in the stand to watch every player that the camera doesn't.
Yeah.
So at least there's positive steps being
It's about
taken.
managing
Well,
imperfection.
Okay, yeah, it's
It will
managing
always be
imperfection.
imperfect.
It's not about
Imperfect, yeah.
scaremongering. I have a little
Yeah.
boy who's playing rugby as well, so I'd be concerned. We're all concerned.
I know.
But I think just taking those positive steps
But
to try
can't
and
they
make it
look
better.
at can't they look at the game in an overall structure and say, okay, you know, we saw Anthony Watson counter-attacking for Bath, for instance. You know, nobody got near him. It was this wonderful way of playing the game. Now, people talk about Super 15. I'm not saying it's any less physical, but we've got to move away, as Paddy said, and I agree. We've got to move away from selectors or managers selecting the guy because he's 18 stone.
Exactly.
And saying to the other guy, I heard of a young player that came back from Australia in one of the
Okay.
academies, and they just said, look, you're too light to play.
So,
You know,
so we have protocols there. If you were being proactive at the moment,
Very
And
patting the back
there's
for
a
them,
think tank
They're
after the
important.
World
and then
Cup.
but long term
There's a big think tank
Yeah.
after the World Cup
To
which
look
will
at the law.
hopefully
No,
look
they're
at the
doing a great
laws of the
job.
game.
in terms of the laws and the way the game's played, and maybe
And that'll be part of the
reducing
concussion as well.
part of the physicality of it. Okay, well, you know, we are going to come back to it.